Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Hopefully you can hear me. No, the button on the top of the mic is not pressed. Can somebody let me know if you can hear me now? Thank you. No idea what happened. I realise you don't see behind the scenes here, but one of the things that I do every single morning is I start the machine up and I test the sound. And the sound up until about 50 seconds ago was working absolutely fine. And now, well, there you are. Anyway, let me start again. Good morning, everyone. How the devil are you doing this fine morning? Going to say good morning to my mate Frank over at Diacon Demo on Instagram, Takashi 2057, Kristen Melvin, White Oak Tree, Gilberto Suarez, Tommy Schubert, Uncle Tom Cobley, and all over on Instagram. And then over here, Dan Cullen was here at 7:58 rather, just before 8 o'clock. Saying what a beautiful day. Yeah, I have to admit I didn't see it coming. I took my mother-in-law home last night, and it wasn't particularly cold. Woke up this morning, frosty as anything. Now, who else do we have here? Jim Turner is here, currently doing his own work apparently. Let's have a look. Roll on down. Gary Muirhead is back with us, after yesterday. Saying, good morning, gentlemen and sheep. If you were here yesterday, you know precisely why he's referring to sheep. That's the new part of our audience. Gary, my other half tells me that your other half says that you're going on a cruise to, numerous places, but Italy and Greece. When are you going and who are you going with? Because we're going too. That would be too weird, wouldn't it? Let's have a look. There's Jim saying, in the digger today, Gary, sheep will have to watch on catch up. Good. Stick a screen up in there. That'll be fine. Ken Hatter is here, and I think he's summing up the weather for just about everybody. Thank you, Jim. Mark and his amazing world of mime. Yes, it was a bit like that, wasn't it? Let's have a look what we got going on here. There we are. Jim saying, not paid work, I'm on my machine at my place. Won't be long now, Jim. I'm sure you'll be back in the saddle properly and officially in the not too distant future. Loads and loads of stuff to tell you today. I think I say that every morning, but it's always the case. A lot of films to show you and a bit of a new initiative to tell you about as well. So let me roll the intro and get the show on the road, and then we can get into the meat of the thing. There you are. Gary is going on a cruise. It's for his 25th wedding anniversary. When are you actually going, Gary? Ours is middle of August. Booked it last night, actually. Yeah. Bar humbug. No sheep watching. I'm sure there are some sheep watching somewhere in the world. You know, we're big in New Zealand, for example. Anyway, it is. Never mind all that. It is Wednesday, the 14th of January. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming, the authentic voice of the world of demolition. In today's show, Caterpillar and the latest word in machine autonomy. We're chilling out with JCB Fastrac. Refueling made easy, and the surprising history of O&K. Yeah, we're doing a bit of a trip down memory lane. And in today's morning monologue, Westminster Storm Warning. If you're in the demolition field, you might like to stick around for that, because I have some news, and it's not good. Have some other news for the demolition industry, which I will bring to you. Oddly enough, it's kind of us in the news, sort of. I'll tell you about that in a second, after this. So, a lack of skilled workers is probably the greatest challenge facing the global demolition industry today. The industry itself has failed to engage with young people making their careers decisions, and careers in the trades have kind of fallen out of fashion. I talk about it a lot, pretty much daily, and I think one of the issues that we've got as an industry is that we don't meet young people where they are. We seem to believe that if we put a simulator in the NEC once a year for a skills show, then the hordes of young people, all highly enthusiastic with fantastic work ethic, will come storming over the hill. That's not the case. I've long had the belief that we need to go and find those people, meet them where they are. Now, where are they these days? They're on social media. So last weekend, I sat down and produced a couple of AI films. I won't bore you with detail. I'm going to show you one in a moment. There will be a series. I've done two. There'll probably be five. There may even be more than that. So my notion is that I'm going to put out these films on our social media channels, where we've got I don't know, 250,000 subscribers, followers, whatever it might be. More than that, actually. It's more like 350,000 followers and subscribers. But I want to go further than that. So this is kind of open offer to the world of demolition. I've produced a video, and I'm going to show you the first of them in just a moment. It's in vertical format, so it won't look particularly good on here, but you'll get the idea. So I've produced them. I've got captions on them, which can be removed. So if you want to produce this in French, Spanish, Mandarin Chinese, you can do that. I can strip out the captions and you can have it. I've also put my own music on it, but I can strip that out as well. You can put your own branding on it. So if you're a demolition company and you are looking to attract young people and you would like a free 1 video, 2 videos, ultimately 4, 5, 6 videos, we can supply free of charge, no questions asked. Before I get any further, let me show you the first of these videos. So there you are. That's the first of our videos. I think it comes in about 30 seconds, so it's ideal for YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and all of that kind of thing. Those films are available free of charge. You can have them in the current format. You can have them without captions. You can have them without music. You can have them without anything at all free of charge. Hate to have to do this bit, but I'm going to do it. This is not really my job, you know. I am not struggling for lack of skilled people. I've got Fred next door, who is very skilled at what he does, and I don't need any more. The industry needs more. But apparently, the combined forces of the CITB, NOCN, CSCS, CPCS, NFDC, NDTG are still having meetings discussing the fact that there's a skill shortage 40 years after we got a skills shortage. So rather than sitting on my hands and just allowing it to happen, I've decided to do something about it. Whether the industry will take us up on it, we shall see. We shall see. But there you are. Now let me have a look. Dan says, when is the news from Westminster good news? Very rarely. Gary says, we're flying to Italy on the 5th of September to catch a ship. I think I don't know who you're sailing with. We're with Princess Cruises. My other half loves Princess Cruises. And we're on the Sun Princess. If you were around last year, that's the one we went on. I think at one point it was the biggest cruise ship in the world, and we're going on that. And we're doing exactly the same. We're flying to Rome, then taking the train down to Civitavecchia. That's where we're going. Pick up the ship, and then 14 nights later we roll off, because we'll be so filled with food, roll off at the other end in Barcelona to fly home again. But we're ahead of you. I think we're about the 13th or 14th of August. So, hey, listen, it might even be the same ship. Who knows? But you'll love it. Oh, you'll absolutely love it. And there's Gary saying, cheers, Dan, because Dan said, where is it? Oh, there he is. He says, "Oh, cruise, well deserved, Gary." Yeah, absolutely. Gary works hard, and I'm sure his good lady Christine more than deserves it. 25 years of marriage. Congratulations for September. Should we start the show? Let's do that. Let's start with a bit of Caterpillar, followed by a bit of Caterpillar. Yeah, Gary is definitely traveling in style. He's going with Royal Caribbean. Only seen them from a distance, but they look very smart indeed. And cruise ships are just the best place to be. They really are. Anyway, I've done all that. Let's crack on with the show. So last week, no, this week, Las Vegas has been host to the CES, Consumer Electronics Show. Lots and lots of business going on there related to this industry. Bobcat were there, Komatsu were there, Caterpillar were there. Now, Caterpillar have issued a bunch of information on their adoption of AI, their work with NVIDIA, their work on autonomous machines, which I'll show you in just a moment. So yesterday afternoon, if you were paying attention, I actually went and turned all of the information coming out of Caterpillar into a standalone podcast, which brings you right up to speed. That's available free of charge over on buymeacoffee.com/demolition news. If you're in the WhatsApp group, you probably already know that anyway. So that's available. But I wanted to show you, this was a video that the mighty Caterpillar put together to show off their autonomous capabilities today. Yep, as Gary, oh no, it wasn't Gary, it was Dan, rightly points out, no operators whatsoever in that little film. Obviously a controlled environment, I would say. But yeah, Caterpillar really pushing the boundary. Caterpillar have been in autonomous equipment for probably 30 plus years. But if you get a chance to listen to that podcast, you'll find out exactly where they are today. They are really pushing the envelope on that. Gary says, our first time cruising, really looking forward to it. I'll tell you now, it is addictive. It is very, very addictive. We went on a mini cruise, literally, I think we did 3 days. We went from Southampton to Bruges, on to Amsterdam, and then back home again. Absolutely hooked from that point on. Did it once, and we've done it virtually every year since. So yeah, you'll have a great time. Can't see that working in the UK as coverage and Wi-Fi would be issues. Not the case anymore. I've said this before, Dan. You can go and get yourself for a couple of £100. You can go and get yourself a system from a company like Plinx, Plinx, and they will basically put a Wi-Fi network in your back pocket. We did it. What was the name of that show? I can't remember. Plantworks did a show, Future something or other. I honestly, I've had a brain fart here. Honestly, can't remember what the show was called, but it was up at I can't even remember where it was, in Peterborough, a couple of years ago, and they had invited me to do a live broadcast from the show, and I arrived there with all sort of mod cons and everything else, no network connection whatsoever. But thankfully, one of the exhibitors there was Plinks. Strolled over to their stand, and they said, "Oh, yeah, I'll take that." Plugged it into the power Wi-Fi network, and it was proper high speed. It was 5G, but high speed. So I don't actually think that's a problem at all. Gary saying from today, Steelers will be at the Lammer Show. First time ever at this kind of event. I have not done a Lammer Show in probably 20 years. It's always the wrong time of the year. Bloody freezing cold and usually soaking wet as well. Andy Thornton. Morning, Mark. Morning. Oh, yeah. Morning to you, Andy, as well. And another late arrival, but welcome nonetheless. Our good friend, Mick Norton. Morning, Mick. Good of you to join us. We've got loads and loads of stuff to go through here. Yeah, we're getting chilly with the mighty JCB in just a moment after this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, we had a bit of a brush with the snow a little while ago. As a lot of you know, my birthday is in February. February tends to be when we get the proper snow. So in advance of that, JCB have been out testing their Fastrac tractor in extreme temperatures up in Finland. It looks like this.
We're in Rovaniemi, which is in Finland, just inside the Arctic Circle, and we're testing the new JCB Fastrac 6000 series in some arduous cold climate conditions. Last week we had temperatures as low as -28, and this week we're at around -6 degrees, but we've got a lot more snow. So there are lots of varying conditions for the machine to deal with.
This machine at the moment, it looks pretty similar to a machine that we're already producing. Our 4000 series looks pretty similar, but every system on the machine is different. We have a different engine, different axles, different transmission, the hydraulic circuit's different, the control systems for each of those circuits, they've had to change in order for it to work. We're looking at CTIS at the moment, so we have a system where we can inflate and deflate tyres from within the tractor while moving, so that's having to be tested here as well. New screens, new electronic components, everything really on this machine is new, and we are having to assess its reliability, its performance, and how we are managing it and how we're using it.
We've been running some typical cold climate operations here to put the machine through a realistic use case while we're here. So this morning we went and did some snow blowing. This is used when you're clearing thicker patches of snow off the roads. And we've also been doing some snow ploughing work. This is performed at higher speed on the roads at around 50 to 60 kilometers per hour. You need to be licensed to plough on the roads in Finland, so we've got Kalle here to help us really put the machine through its paces. It tests the machine's transmission, it also tests the PTO driveline and makes sure that the machine can perform correctly when operating under these conditions. We're also using Yanni's quarry here, which is the backdrop. And in this area we can go and do snow blowing and some other duties that we can't do on the main road, such as some trailer towing up some steeper inclines and also generally performing some more shakedown on the machine that we couldn't do on the public roads.
We're measuring pressures, flows, temperatures, vacuums, reading for faults permanently all of the time, even seemingly minor things like performance of lights, performance of the heater and the windscreen demist. All of that kind of thing takes on a whole new light when you're below -20 degrees.
Whilst we're in the machine and running, I'm monitoring all of the temperatures and pressures and other data channels to make sure that we're running within acceptable conditions for the machine.
We collate all the data from hot climate, cold climate, and the tractor's being run in the UK at the moment. Data gets collated, faults and issues and things that we can improve. We note down and then try to find ways of solving issues, improving the product, mechanical component failures. We sometimes have to go back to suppliers to get improved parts. Generally, by doing this kind of testing, we will have a much better machine.
The ultimate goal of this testing is to sign the machine off at these cold temperatures. We need to ensure that the machine performs just as well here as it does in the UK under less arduous conditions. We need to make sure that we don't have systems that leak when seals become cold. We need to ensure that the operator can use the machine quickly, that we have a good warm-up procedure, and probably most critically, we need to make sure that the machine will actually start. So we need to have a good grid heater, good fuel heaters, and an adequate size starter motor to ensure that the machine will actually get going in these cold conditions.
Ultimately, we need to get the 6000 series tractor on the market and out to customers, and we want the customers to be really, really happy with the product.
Looks beautiful, but didn't the JCB guys look cold? Didn't they look cold? Dan Cullen saying, Lammer, where is that? The NEC these days, never used to be. Sure, it used to be over in, I can't actually remember, like the Fens or something like that. I'm sure it used to be, but it's now at the NEC, which, as you know, is the one of my least favourite places to go. Gary, thank you for fixing my brain. So I mentioned the fact that there was a show looking to the future, and it was organised by the organisers of Plant Works. You'd have thought I could have figured out it was called Future Works, wouldn't you? But I didn't. But thank you very much indeed. Andy and Nick, you missed Jim's dancing sheep. Yeah, I think we should get that on film. -28, I'd be in heaven. -28, I'd be near the closest outlet for hot chocolate, I would say. Dan says, looks like some piece of kit. I wonder how those tyres are for grip. They certainly look like they were okay in those conditions. But that inflate and deflate idea, that always helps as well. Snow clearance at 50 to 60 mile an hour. Holy mother of God. Yeah, you wouldn't want to be coming in the other direction while they're doing that, would you? You would basically be a snowball. Yeah, but fantastic work, JCB. Great film. Thank you very much indeed for sending that over to us. We're talking refueling in just a moment. And speaking of fuel...
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Yeah, Jim, you and I are of one mind. Lammer was a good do at Newark, great showground, but now it's at the NEC. I won't ever bother going. That's my feeling on the NEC as well. Wild horses wouldn't get me there. Last time I went was for, I think it was a recycling show, and it's just desolate. And it's not just because it's indoors, although that's a big issue. But Intermat is partly indoors. ConExpo is partly indoors. Great swathes of Bauma are indoors, and they seem to make it work, whereas the NEC is just a soulless hellhole where you have to sell a lung or a kidney to get yourself a cup of coffee. Just bloody horrible place. Hate it. Talk about refuel. The JCB 3-ton dumper needs looking at, as my God, it's awful to fill, says Dan. Well, I may well have the solution. Probably not. Last ConExpo, we worked with a company called Thunder Creek, who make these skid-mounted, wheel-mounted. It would be doing them a disservice to describe them as a Bowser. But they have these, well, you're about to see one, so I won't have to describe it, but these skid-mounted systems whereby you can take it from site to site, machine to machine, and you've got all of your fluids, your lubes, your hydraulic fluid, and in this instance, fuel. This is what it looks like in action.
We do earth moving, underground utilities, overloading, demolition. We do a lot of gas stations, strip malls, that type stuff, even small projects like Dutch Brothers. This project here is for D49 school district, doing all the grading, demolition, grading, over-X for indoors bus storage. Our big pieces are the 480 Volvo excavator. And we got a D51 Komatsu dozer. We got a 235 link belt, Kawasaki 67 loader, roller, ham roller, 84-inch sheep foot, and a mini motor grader. On-site fueling is very important. We used to have a F350 with 310-gallon tanks on it, and it would take hours on each job site to go around and then run back to the fuel station, pick up fuel, and finally I was like, this is not working. 6-7 hours of fueling a day is ridiculous. This, we can knock it out in a couple hours and we're done. Yeah, we're saving on bulk fuel at least 15 to 20 cents a gallon. It's just more efficient. when you're pumping 40 gallons a minute versus, I mean, they say it's 20 gallons on the truck, but I don't think it's 20. It's like maybe 15, 12 to 15. So it's just way faster. Start that motor up and just start pumping fuel. I don't want to have to go get a hazmat license. And then not only that, but I don't want to have to try to find someone, and then pay them even more. I would definitely say it's worth every penny. It's just no headache. Like we hook it up to, I wouldn't hook it up to anything less than a 3/4 ton truck, and you can do what you need to. Pretty awesome. You won't have any problems filling stuff up. It's a whole bunch of headache that's off your shoulders when you don't have to go, well, I have to cut off early because I got to make 2 or 3 runs to the fuel station to fill up all this equipment, or 5 runs or whatever with whatever setup you have. This is the way to go. The other nice thing about having a trailer is it doesn't matter who it is. They can just jump on it and pick it up. If they got to run to Pueblo or they got to run up to Wyoming with it, they can just pick it up and go do their stuff and come back. So you don't have to have a CDL. You don't have to have a hazmat. It's like only this guy or these 2 guys are the only ones that can drive it. So it makes it much easier. When I saw the trailer, I was like, dude, this is like well built. It's no screwing around. It's a very well built trailer. Heavy axles. I'd rather have 4 of these trailers, stick them on job sites, than to have to hire somebody and pay all that. I'm sure that hazmat stuff, the insurance for that is not cheap. Any avenue you can find to save money is going to help in the long run. That way you can be more competitive in your bidding.
Yeah, hoping to run into those guys at ConExpo in not that long now. Are they available in the UK? Last I heard, they were not, although Gary does say Fuel Proof in the UK is a fantastic product, so maybe take a look at that. Jim, going back to the NEC. I'm not against the NEC as such. I've been to Crufts, home self-build show and shooting shows, but machinery shows need to be outside, or at least partly. I feel hemmed in when everything is indoors. As I say, the big overseas shows, the ConExpos, the Baumans, the Intermats, the Samotas, seem to be able to make it work. Maybe because it's a combination of the two. There is some indoors, there's also some outdoors, there's a bit of movement, whereas the NEC feels like the place where your soul goes to die. We've got one more film to show you. We're going down memory lane once again, this time with O&K. But before we get to that, let me show you this, because the book that I'm about to tell you about is kind of the subject-ish, sort of today's morning monologue. Mick Norton says, in 1969, as a military plant operator, I was ordered to undertake a snow clearance on the perimeter roads around Maidstone Prison using my BK-12 dozer. After a while, we were called a halt after I had windowed half a dozen man covers. Oh, windrowed, not windowed, windrowed half a dozen manhole covers. Did you not hear that? Did you not feel a bit of a bump? Let's get back to it, says Dan. Have a great day, stay safe, and look out for your colleagues. Yeah, absolutely. Morning monologue tonight. Today is nice and straightforward, so you can even listen to that one, Dan. A very quick reminder: we've got a show for you tomorrow morning, as per usual. But tomorrow afternoon, 3:00, we've also, or 2:55 actually, we're starting. We've also got the sneak preview of what the mighty Volvo will be showing at ConExpo. So if you're around tomorrow afternoon, 3:00-ish, we'll be able to bring you that as well. And I think you can probably listen into that one as well, assuming we can make it all work. Anyway. We've looked previously at the likes of, who did we do first? Trying to remember. I know we did Smalley excavators. We did Hymac, didn't we? We did Hymac, yeah. We these looking back at the history of plant and equipment. Well, this time we're going to look at O&K. So sit back for the next 6 minutes and, wander down memory lane. O&K.
Okay, let's kick things off with a machine that is just truly epically huge. I want you to try and picture a 900-ton machine. To put that in perspective, that's like taking 6 blue whales, or about 15 heavy military tanks, and forging them all into one single piece of equipment.
Now, give that machine the raw power of over 4,000 horses. I mean, that is more force than you'd find in 3 Bugatti Veyron supercars, all revving at once.
And finally, imagine it scooping up over 52 cubic meters of earth in a single pass. That's enough to fill an entire backyard swimming pool with just one scoop of its bucket. This beast is the RH400, one of the biggest hydraulic excavators ever built. So you have to ask, where did this incredible tech come from? Well, it wasn't dreamed up in some modern Silicon Valley lab. The answer is this amazing story of innovation, of survival, and of a brilliant industrial legacy that's basically hiding in plain sight. To find that answer, we've got to go all the way back to 1876 in Berlin. That's where two entrepreneurs, Benno Ornstein and Arthur Koppel, started a company that was focused on something much, much smaller: light, narrow-gauge railways for things like mines and plantations. You know, the story of O&K is really a story of constant adaptation. They went from railways to their first steam shovel in 1908, and then they jumped on the diesel trend in the 20s. But their biggest challenges, well, they were geopolitical. Because the company had Jewish founders, it was targeted by the Nazi regime. And then, after the war, their assets were split between East and West Germany, which left the western half literally fighting for its life. This whole crucible of change, it set the stage for a really dramatic pivot. So, with all its pre-war assets in the East now gone, the part of O&K that survived in West Germany, they needed a massive technological leap forward just to stay in the game. They couldn't compete on volume anymore. They had to out-innovate everybody else. And this right here, this was the company's defining moment. In 1961, they bet everything, on a brand new technology and launched the RH5. And wow, was that a gamble that paid off? Within just a decade, they weren't just making regular construction equipment, they were building absolute giants like the RH60 for the really high-stakes mining industry. The impact was just staggering. O&K didn't just join a market, it literally created the entire European market for hydraulic excavators. This one single product redefined the company and pretty much secured its future for decades to come. And after that initial breakthrough, the scale of their success was just immense. O&K went on to produce over 55,000 hydraulic excavators, shipping them all over the globe. They had found their sweet spot and they were ready to own it. So this incredible success, it was all driven by a core piece of intellectual property, a kind of secret weapon that made their biggest machines uniquely efficient and powerful, especially in the toughest environments imaginable. They called it the Tri-Power System. It was this patented piece of engineering genius, and really, it's the reason other companies were eventually willing to pay billions to get their hands on O&K's tech. What was so great about it? Well, the system solved three huge problems at once. It boosted digging force, it automatically kept the bucket stable so nothing spilled out, and the combination of those two things made loading cycles way, way faster. And for a huge mining operation, that extra speed translates directly into millions and millions of dollars. And this wasn't just theory, you know? Out in the real world, in places like the punishing Canadian oil sands, this efficiency meant incredible performance, moving literal mountains of material at record-breaking speeds. This was their technological crown jewel. It really was an incredible transformation. Just think about it. A company that started out making these small, simple field railways had over a century focused its entire value and identity into building some of the largest, most technologically advanced machines on the entire planet. And you know what? O&K's management, they knew exactly what their most valuable asset was. So they started this methodical process of just selling off everything else, their original railway business, even a successful escalator division, all to focus the company's value purely on that high-tech excavator business. The final act really played out over 2 decades. It was a systematic sale of the company, piece by piece. First went the railways, then the escalators, then their general construction equipment, until the only thing left was the most valuable high-tech mining division. Which brings us to the final part of this whole journey, tracing that billion-dollar technology from its German roots all the way to its current home, inside another industrial giant. And right here, you can see the immense value of O&K's tech reflected in these massive acquisitions. In 2009, a company called Bucyrus paid $1.3 billion for it. Then, just 1 year later, Caterpillar turns around and acquires Bucyrus for a staggering $7.6 billion, in large part just to get their hands on that same mining technology. And here it is. This is the payoff to our whole story. The ghost in the machine is Ornstein and Koppel. Its engineering DNA, specifically that RH platform and that amazing Tri-Power system,
That's the secret sauce that makes those giant yellow Caterpillar excavators so powerful and efficient today. I mean, just think about this incredible journey. From a small railway company, O&K survived world wars and the division of its own country. It revolutionized an entire industry with a single product, dominated the high-end mining market with its unique tech, and then ultimately saw that technology become a core part of the world's leading equipment manufacturer.
This whole story really makes you wonder, doesn't it? The O&K name is mostly gone from the industry today, but its core ideas are still out there moving mountains all around the world. So what other powerful, game-changing ideas from the past are hiding in plain sight, living on as ghosts in the machines we all rely on every single day?
It's quite some story, isn't it? I've got a bit. There were bits of that I was completely unaware of, like its Jewish heritage, for one thing. I tend to think of, you think of the name Orenstein and Capel being German, which obviously they were, but Jewish German. So when the Nazis rose to power, they were somewhat unpopular, and to rise through that, and you saw the story, be acquired by Basaris acquired by Caterpillar. Unbelievable story. Gary says, I do miss seeing and operating mighty O&K equipment. Dan saying, very interesting. Gary saying, Tri-Power was so advanced for its time. Yeah, it really was. Really was. Mick Norton enjoyed that as well. Love the O&K story. Jim says, the old fellow drove the RH300, said it was streaks ahead of the DMAG 241 he was normally on. The O&K would tear anything out because of their design. The 300 was their test bed on a live site. It was upgraded as the problems and breakages happened. Yeah, stunning piece of equipment. And I have to admit, a bit of a lump in my throat. Me and Fred, just before COVID, I think it was, went up to Banks Mining up in Northumberland, just around the corner from Miller Engineering. And they've got what they refer to as the graveyard, where they parked up a bunch of older machines. There was a bunch of O&K machines there, which I'm sure, could have served a purpose, maybe not at Banks, but maybe overseas somewhere. But to see them just sat there collecting dust, it's kind of a key part of our industrial heritage. It was a bit like an elephant's graveyard. The once mighty beasts just sat there rusting away. Not that elephants rust away, but you get the idea. I'm mixing my metaphors here. That pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, do please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Hope to see you again very, very soon. I'm here not once, but twice tomorrow. So one at 10 in the morning, one at 3 in the afternoon. So if you can be here, do that. Do be there. I'm going to hit the morning monologue button. See you in a few seconds after this. A decent journalist worth his or her salt possesses a number of core skills: curiosity, the ability to listen, and a firm grasp of spelling, grammar, and the flow of language. In addition, they need what in effect amounts to 360-degree vision. They need to be able to look back and report upon what has just happened, while simultaneously scanning the horizon for what might. More than 4 years ago, I reported on my concerns about the growing threat from the environmental lobby over the perceived squandering of embodied carbon. It would take a bit more research for me to figure it out, but it would take a bit more research for me to figure out just how this embodied carbon might impact the demolition industry. When I did finally get to grips with it, which was for me an entirely brand new subject, I produced a podcast series. The fact that I called that podcast series Demolition's Greatest Threat probably tells you all you need to know about my concerns. When that podcast first aired, it was greeted in the industry's corridors of power with derision and dismissal. It was scaremongering, they said. It was just that Mark Antony stirring things up to get more viewers on his website. It wasn't. And while I hate to say I told you so, I told you so. Yesterday, it was announced that the Westminster City Council has published its City Plan Partial Review that sets out its planning policies. The review follows 3 years of engagement with residents, businesses, developers, and other local stakeholders. At the centre of the review is a new retrofit first policy, requiring developers to explore options for retrofitting and adapting existing buildings before even seeking permission for demolition and redevelopment. The area covered by Westminster City Council is relatively small, has a population of just over 200,000 people across an area of around 8.3 square miles. But Westminster is a significant economic powerhouse. It's home to 50,000 businesses, 700,000 jobs, and it contributes something like £55.7 billion to the national output. And the makeup of the council's buildings is also skewed. It houses national landmarks and institutions, including the Houses of Parliament and Buckingham Palace, none of which are likely to face the prospect of demolition anytime soon. But Westminster is also the heart of the nation's capital and is a major political hub. It's the place where laws are passed, the bridge from which the nation is steered. What happens in Westminster is often a precursor, a testing ground for what will be rolled out across the country. Now, the council says that it recognises that not all buildings can be retrofitted and is therefore adopting a retrofit first, not retrofit only approach. But while the council was stopped just short of an all-out moratorium on demolition, the writing once again is on the wall. Councillor Jeff Barraclough says, our retrofit first policy sets a new benchmark for local authorities. It will help reduce carbon emissions from today's buildings and has the potential to be the biggest single emissions reduction initiative undertaken by any council in the country. In the face of this retrofit first doctrine, the challenge facing the demolition industry is both clear and complex. We all know that the demolition industry is a key contributor to the circular economy through its production of important and valuable secondary aggregates. We also know that the demolition industry knows more about recycling, materials reuse, and environmental stewardship than many of those in the nation's corridors of power. Yet, largely through no fault of its own, the demolition sector finds itself at odds with popular opinion. We live in an age in which anything that doesn't adhere to sustainability at all costs environmental mantra is seen as anti-planet. As far as the knit your own muesli lobby is concerned, demolition is now on a par with kicking a polar bear to death. The existential threat now facing the UK demolition industry, particularly those parts of it that are active in London, is not of its own making, of course. But precisely as it did with its muted response to the abolition of red diesel, of the red diesel subsidy, the sector has failed to sense a shifting of the tides. It's failed to change tack, and it now faces the very real possibility of being dashed upon the rocks of environmental zealotry. I said all of this and more than 4 years ago. There's a podcast series on the subject. More recently, I've published an ebook called In Defence of Demolition to help the sector, belatedly, to mount a meaningful rebuttal. But the industry failed to respond 4 years ago, and my fear is it may well fail to respond again. But you can't say I didn't warn you. There you are. And I've just realised I've got that all scheduled to go out a bit later on as an article, and I've missed a piece. No, probably nothing to worry about. What's the worst that could happen? So, yeah, there you are. Westminster City Council going retrofit first. So, in other words, just to clarify precisely what all that means, don't come to us with your demolition ideas. Come to us first with retrofit ideas, and we may well consider demolition if all else fails. As I say, we've seen it with things like the low emission zones and ultra low emission zones and stuff. London, as the nation's capital, is the proving ground. If Westminster City Council make retrofit first work, trust me, Birmingham, Manchester, Leeds, Newcastle, Uncle Tom Gobley and all will follow suit. And I said this I was on a podcast the other day as a guest for once, and I actually said one of the issues facing the demolition industry at the moment is the fact that you cannot argue against environmental initiatives. You're seen as some kind of destroy the planet lunatic if you argue against it. And I feel like we've allowed that narrative to overtake us. One of the points that I made on the podcast was, on paper, do away with demolition and you do away with the wastage of embodied carbon, which sounds absolutely fine. As I say, on paper, who could possibly argue with that? But if demolition is not producing hundreds of thousands of tons of secondary aggregate, where are you going to get the replacement for those aggregates? Your only option is to get them out of a big hole in the ground called a quarry, which will expend carbon. Is anybody thinking of that? The example I made was, or the comparison I drew, was with this notion that electric cars will save the planet. Now, if the UK or if the world were running on solar power or on wind power or on tidal power, maybe. I mean, I think electric cars have their limitations, but I think if you are producing the power to get from A to B in a thoroughly green and renewable way, makes perfect sense. But the moment that you start to power your electric car from a coal-fired or fossil fuel fired power station, any argument that you've made for being part of the tree hugging community just goes out the window. But nobody is looking at the bigger picture. One of the key issues facing this embodied carbon thing, there was a couple of tower blocks up in Scotland a year or two ago, and a local architect said, these are a fine example of brutalist architecture. They should be protected at all costs. We must not demolish them. And besides, think of all the embodied carbon trapped within them. That would be a terrible waste, which on the face of it, again, makes perfect sense. However, these tower blocks were built in the 60s. They were horrible to look at. Nobody wanted to live there. Those that did live there, several people have committed suicide. I'm not saying because of the brutalist architecture, but the place is not in a good situation. Take them down and build something more appropriate. And I'm saying that purely as a person, not as a demolition fan or a demolition fanboy or a demolition advocate. I'm saying that because it makes more sense. Give people nice places to live, and the chances are they will take better care of them. They will be better as a result. The local community will be better as a result, rather than taking the word of an architect who's got a bit of a boner for brutalist architecture. Never mind the poor people that live in the bloody thing. Look at it. This is look at all that concrete. Who wouldn't want to live in a concrete block? Yeah. Plenty of people wouldn't want to live in a concrete block, let me tell you. This has all happened not because of the demolition industry, but I do think the demolition industry has allowed it to happen. There's been no counter argument. There's been no fight back, no pushback, no meeting of minds. I mean, the podcast that I was on was talking about refurbishment and retrofit. And one of the questions that was raised was, would there be value in the demolition industry and the refurb and retrofit industry sort of getting together around a table? Yeah. But why hasn't it happened? What are those at the top of both of those industry sectors actually doing? And I don't know. I genuinely don't know. It goes back to the film that I showed you at the start of the show, this notion of going to social media to try and convince young people to at least consider a career in demolition. I shouldn't have to do that. That's not my job. Yeah, all right, I produce some videos and, I have a platform and stuff. That's not my job. Surely the people in the corridors of power should be the ones trying to address these things, addressing the removal of the red diesel subsidy, addressing the threat from the environmental lobby, addressing the threat from the skills shortage. What do they actually do? What we got here? Somebody's put something in the chat. If the country concentrated on a distance travelled of aggregate, they'd save much more carbon and general pollution. Aggregates are very heavy and need to be sourced as locally as possible. All very true. Although I do remember, and I realise you're talking predominantly about our road transport there, but I do remember on my visit to the Glen Sander quarry just off the coast of Oban up in Scotland, a lot of the material that was being produced there, which I think it was granite, I can't actually remember, but a lot of the material that was being produced there was actually going to America. It was going literally straight across the Atlantic, big boats, and over to New York and places like that. I'm guessing shipping is rather more cost effective than road transport. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And Chris Hall's just right, by the way. Morning all. Later game, must try harder, just like my school report as well. But there is another point, and I'm glad you said that, Jim, because I hadn't thought of that. I had thought about the notion of replacing secondary aggregates with virgin aggregates, which obviously comes at a carbon cost, and it obviously comes at a value cost, financial cost, but also the transport cost. If you want, for example, limestone in London, there's every likelihood it's coming from like Derbyshire. So not only have you expended carbon to get it out of the ground and to crush it and to process it and to load it, you've then got to haul it from Derbyshire to London, yet more carbon emissions. Then you've got to unload it and process it and put it. Does that make any sense to anyone? Andy says, I admit I'm talking out of my depth, but does this policy push toward higher value, complex projects where demo expertise matters most, turning fewer routine jobs into more profitable, specialized work? It's a good question. To be perfectly honest with you, I think the ultimate answer there is we don't actually know at the moment. And one of my concerns with this at the moment, and we'll use Westminster City Council as the example because that one is sort of fresh in everyone's mind. We're going retrofit first. So before you even come to us with a demolition proposal, you need to have given it some serious thought. But what if demolition is actually the best solution? Is the best idea not to, we have this area of space. There is something on it. What are the options? And to actually weigh up those options, we could take it down, which would, yes, it would waste that embodied carbon, but it will be more thermally efficient, energy efficient, and so on. What is the actual payback? And even the payback on embodied carbon, go back to the high profile one, which was the proposed demolition, which was on, then off, then on, then off, and now back on again. The flagship Marks and Spencer store on Regent Street in London. It was kicked back to Michael Gove, as was, because of concerns over embodied carbon. And when they actually did the maths, the embodied carbon payback was 11 years. It would take 11 years for that to sort of break even in terms of carbon. The existing Marks and Spencer store on Regent Street has been there for 200 plus years. In all likelihood, its replacement will also be there for 100, 150, 200 years. So you'd have thought that 11 years carbon payback on a building that will be there for 100 years. Yes, it will be carbon negative for 10 years, but for the next 90, carbon positive. Surely Surely somebody could do the maths on that. But that 11 years was one of the reasons it was kicked to the curb. It's since been given the go-ahead again. But yeah, kicked to the curb with a payback of 11 years. We used to transport a lot more by rail and boat, says Jim. Both are far more efficient than road transport. The canal network should have been upgraded and widened over the years like our road network has. Yeah, absolutely. I did do a job. We went on a demolition job over in West London, not a million miles away from Acton, with Collards a few years back, and they were using barges to take the demolition debris away. Worked like an absolute charm, cheap as chips. No clogging up the roads. Absolute. I mean, not everywhere has canals. Obviously, London has its Grand Union Canal. Birmingham, obviously, loads of canals, more than Venice. They will always tell you. Manchester, Liverpool, up through Staffordshire and places like that, loads and loads of canals. But yes, I think we built them. They were fantastic. They were an engineering marvel. They were, and then we kind of but roads. If we could have developed both at the same time, we'd be in a different place. I think Andy says it all comes down to money. If a retrofit is 3 times the price of a rip up and start again, money will talk. I'm not entirely convinced that is true. Like I said about this notion of you can't argue against environmental initiatives. I think one of the key drivers of all of this is not necessarily being green. I think it's more a case of being seen to be green. Like, go back to Marks and Spencer's, Michael Gove, oh, no. 11 years to recoup that wasted carbon? No, I can't have that on my watch. That would be terrible. When in actual fact, when you really do the maths, makes much more sense. Now, here's the thing. One of my ancestors was a lock keeper at Camden Lock. Was he really? Love Camden Lock. Not quite the same as it was. It's all gone a little bit upmarket for my liking. Camden and Camden Market and places like that. Camden Lock, proper old. I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it may have been like a boxer or somebody. There is somebody quite famous in the UK, and he is the first of his family to have been born on land. His family were all canal and river people. Wish I could remember who it was. May have been a boxer, may have been a celeb of some description. It's not much of a story, man. I can't tell you who it's actually about, is it? But yeah, I do remember watching a thing about that, and the guy saying he was the first of his family to actually be born on land. Speaking of which, if anybody's have you ever seen the film The Legend of 1900? Check that out. Nothing to do with canals. Got a lot to do with water. Legend of 1900 with Tim Roth. Fantastic movie, if ever you get the chance. Anyway, people, we've done an hour, and I need to save my voice because I'm doing 2 shows tomorrow, one at 10, one at 3. Jim has just said, as you were talking about promoting demolition to our younger generation, same could be done with construction and mechanics by using farms as visitor centres. I agree. The biggest issue that I think we've got, which is precisely why I've done these videos, is quite simply that we, as the demolition, construction, waste, quarrying, mining, farming industry, are over here. And the young people that we really want are over here. One of the key things, I think, is moving the two together. Now, as much as I like your idea, Jim, and I think if you're in like a rural community, I think encouraging young people to go and visit farm visitor centres, I don't think that's particularly hard. But if you're trying to attract from without, you need to move together. And I think the onus is on the industry to go to those people, to those young people. And those young people live, breathe, and die on social media. And we're not harnessing that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Andy Thornton says, Ronnie Wood. Ronnie Wood, formerly of the Faces, now with the Rolling Stones, the first Born on Lead. I don't know why I thought he was a boxer. There was one of those things just kicking around at the back of my head. But yeah, Ronnie Wood. Ronnie Wood. Imagine having Ronnie Wood in your band and him actually being the second guitarist. That's how good Keith Richards is. Jim says, I'm here digging today. No other machines working on site, no other dangers, but real work being done and safe for people to have a go. Oh, the health and safety executive would have a field day with such emotion. Wouldn't they? Wouldn't they just? Jim, please run as construction minister, because man alive, this bullshit does need some sorting out. Anyway, hang on a minute. He also says it'd be great extra income for farmers, great chance for kids to have hands-on experience in a safe atmosphere. Yeah. You imagine going to the local authority and the health and safety executive and explaining that to them. Can you imagine the obstacles that you would be required to overcome to make that happen? Yeah. It's all gone horribly wrong. And anyway, people, I am going to be back tomorrow twice. 10 o'clock, 3 o'clock. First for this normal nonsense. The second time to get a sneak peek even at what Volvo will be showing at ConExpo in Las Vegas in just a few weeks' time. I'm fairly sure it's like 45 days away, something like that. So yeah, be here or be there or be square, isn't it? Be here or be square. I'll see you tomorrow. Until then, everybody, have a fine and splendid day. See you soon.